Why, I didn't see you there. Please excuse me. I was distracted pondering over my favorite subjects, mathematics, astronomy, optics, alchemy, and the languages. Let me introduce myself. I am Roger Bacon, but you can call me Dr. Mirabilis if you would like. That is the name I have earned during my career, meaning wonderful teacher in Latin. I'm a Francescan philosopher who reformed education and the sciences. Let me paint you a picture. I was born in the year 1220 in Somerset, England, to a wealthy family of landowners. My father thought a good education was very important, so I enjoyed the benefits of being able to receive an early training in geometry, arithmetic, music, and astronomy. At the young age of 13, I began my studies at Oxford University, where I studied the works of Aristotle, a Greek philosopher, in great depth, ultimately receiving a master's degree. I then was requested to lecture at the University of Paris in France in the 1240s in one of my areas of expertise. Previously, the teachings of Aristotle had been banned at the University of Paris because he was not a Christian. In the early 1240s, the teachings of Aristotle were reintroduced and they wanted me, the expert, to help with their course. You might not have enjoyed my classes, though. They started at 6 a.m. I lectured many times about the works of Aristotle. He was one of my favorite philosophers. While in Paris, I met Peter Peregrinius, and my love for science began. I believe science is most beautiful and most useful. I was said to be ahead of my time, especially because my works included experiments concerning flying machines and self-driven boats. I always loved experiments. I even was the first to create gunpowder. Based on the experiments of my favorite philosopher, Aristotle, I worked with light rays and refraction of lights and lenses. Unfortunately, in my experiments, I found Aristotle wrong a number of times. To me, this was devastating. I felt like years of hard work based on false facts were wasted. Not only that, but I was sending my own students into the world with false information. This is when I began the struggle with the problem of how can I make anything trustworthy again. People were wrong in the way they decided if something was true or false. They thought that just by arguing logically they could prove the truth. People thought Aristotle was logically correct about what he wrote, but I knew through my own experimentation that this was not the case. Disappointed by this betrayal, I went on to study the works of other famous and great philosophers. And guess what I found? They were wrong on many points as well. Our future learning was inappropriately based on the assumption that the past philosophers and scientists were free of error. I found 4 reasons that these scholars made errors. First, we relied on faulty authority. In other words, we were wrong just because we assumed that the words of the experts before us were correct. Secondly, some teachers are wrong because they relied on popular opinion without facts to back them up. Thirdly, people relied on a personal bias or vanity. They were wrong just because they wanted things to agree with the way they wanted them to be. How silly. And finally, some people were wrong because they believed in what appeared to be a logical argument. All the ways to be wrong bothered me, so I set out to make a change in scientific discovery. I wanted to devise a systematic way of judging the validity of a statement. I concluded that if several people, of course the more the better, were to do the same experiment independent of one another, and they all got the same result, then scientific facts could be confirmed. This ruled out the issue of personal bias. As I once said, neither the voice of authority nor the weight of reason and argument are as significant as experiments from which come peace to the mind. When I returned home to Oxford in 1247, I was consumed by my interest in maths and science. Unfortunately, I spent most of my family's wealth on books, which was all very expensive because they were all handwritten, laboratory equipment, and mathematical tables. I joined the Order of Friars Minor in Oxford around 1256. Why I did this? Nobody really knows. Was I a devout Christian wanting to scientifically explain God's world? Was it because of ill health? People thought I must be sick or something because I never stopped my work to eat, sleep, or even have a human companion. Or could it possibly be because I spent all my family's wealth on my personal interest in the pursuit of scientific study? Because of my ahead-of-the-time ideas about propositions about truth, I became a threat to many other scholars, many of them being my own teachers. I was banned to continue my experiments, and I couldn't write any more books. So around 1264, I sent some of my work to Pope Clement IV, and he liked my idea that through observing creation, you could also learn more about God. So, under his protection, I was able to continue my work. How dare someone try to stop the pursuit of science? During this period, I wrote some of my most famous works, an encyclopedia of the world's knowledge called The Science and the Arts, which was called the Opus Major and Minor, which included concepts for a telescope and optics and explained why science had a role in the university curriculum and how these ideas could be applied to problems in theology and philosophy. When Clement IV died, I was imprisoned by my fellow Franciscans because my teachings were unusual. For about 10 years, I did not have much contact with the outside world. Some of my teachings even attacked the honored scholars and theologians of my time. It was thought that in 1290, due to a change in Franciscan leadership, I was released from prison and returned to my homeland of England. It is very clear that I continue to be very vocal and prolific in my writing about my beliefs in science. Before I died in 1292, I hope that now, with the enlightenment of the centuries, you will embrace me as a scholar, interested in the scientific method, and pursue to discover the truth. So remember, the strongest arguments prove nothing, so long as the conclusions are not verified by experience.